Welcome back to AM Northwest. It's the true crime docu-series with a twist. How I Caught My Killer highlights stories of murder victims who leave behind a case-breaking clue that helps solve their crimes and brings their killers to justice.
I heard some employees starting to talk and kind of mumble about they found something in the vehicle. I don't think they realized I was in the waiting area.
And what Marquita overhears shatters her to her core.
In the back of that car, underneath a whole bunch of junk in the back seat, we found a frozen, dead body.
By the time the detectives came back, I had lost it. They wouldn't tell me what was going on. They just said I needed to go home, that they would call me.
We welcome to AM Northwest the executive producer of How I Caught My Killer, Brad Bernstein. Good to have you with us, Brad. This show is so good. I'm a true crime fan, so I love finding out how things are solved, how murders are solved. But talk to me about your concept and why it's important to you.
Yeah, well, it's important to us, number one, to focus on these victim stories. In many cases on our series, either the stories haven't been told or they've been told very scantily. In very few outlets. So we talk to communities that are underserved, which is a big thing on this series.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the series is that we're focusing on something that the victim left behind, which is a little bit unique in the space. And so it's important for us to make that a big part of the investigation, which it was in all of these cases.
I feel like social media, technology, all that is really helping in many of these cases.
Very much so. And most of our victims, are in their 20s on this series.
Yeah.
So, their use of social devices, social media and devices is really prevalent in their stories. And, thank God it is, because otherwise they may not find justice for their stories.
Yeah, in one of the last year's episodes, because I watch, there was a case actually involved in Vancouver, which is near Portland here, where a young transgender woman was murdered, and her mom knew right away something was wrong because she hadn't posted anything, she hadn't texted. And it really was only hours.
Oh, that case will never, Nikki Kuhnhausen, that case will never leave my mind. Nikki was incredible. And actually, with that, like you're saying, she was so active on social. And so once she stopped, her family knew that there was really something wrong. And that's a good example of a case from an underserved community. Nikki's story, her family kept it alive. She was transgender, as you're saying, and so it was important for us to tell it. And that, I think, above all other episodes on season 1, was the most impressionistic.
And you have really good family involvement. Everybody was talking from the family, and they can let you know things that maybe they hadn't told the police.
It's so true. And, this is very personal to us. It can be a salacious kind of genre in television documentaries. For us, we get very close with the families. We choose not to pursue something unless we have full participation. And it really makes the stories that much more emotional and allows viewers to really kind of endear themselves to the victims once we know that there's, everyone's participating, not only from the families, but the lead homicide detectives. That's also really important for us, because those are the men and women who, were so close to this that it became personal to them and made them want to solve it.
In this season, isn't there a case where someone actually filmed their murder?
There is, of a rapper, an aspiring rapper named Raheem Grant in Clayton County, Georgia. Raheem was, at first blush, you think a rapper, okay, well, you never know what that's going to entail. But actually, Raheem was an incredible father, a great friend, and a real talent.
Yeah.
And Raheem, unfortunately, was filming his own murder, and that helped law enforcement solve his crime.
Yeah, and I think the woman, his former girlfriend or mother of his baby, was really going to try to get away with it, and there was no way, because there she was on video.
Well, I mean, hell, and now no one has to watch that episode because we just gave up the goods.
Oh, sorry about that. But it's the, it's not even just knowing who did it, it's how it happened.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so it's less about a whodunit on that one, and it's more about actually how did they figure out that she was not telling the truth. So I was just giving you a hard time, but the honest truth on that one is it's really worth watching because
Yeah.
the way that they solve it is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you learned from putting the show together? Like, what tips would you give a young woman in her 20s, say, to keep safe?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I want to be careful not to victim blame because a lot
Right.
of these victims, a lot of these victims knew that something was wrong and they did say something. We always hear, if something feels like a red flag, it probably is. So we have to be a little bit careful there. But I will say there are patterns. And if you're in an unhealthy relationship, because oftentimes in these cases, these people knew their perpetrators.
Right.
And so it's, be vigilant and really get help. But again, want to balance that off with just being careful because in many cases our victims did do that and still this was their fate.
Absolutely. We want to tell our viewers the new season of How I Caught My Killer premieres Thursday on Hulu. Brad, thank you so much, and sorry for spoiling one of the episodes.
No, thanks for having me on. I was just giving you a hard time.
I know. We'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.